It's kind of strange that they called Wanda's first movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
It's about time you showed up.
Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing editor at CinemaBlend, with a spoiler-filled review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The movie crushed over opening weekend, opening to $185 million in the United States and close to $500 million worldwide. So I know that a lot of people saw it, and you want to dive into some of the specifics about what you liked and maybe didn't like about Sam Raimi's first official MCU movie and the latest chapter from Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange. So from here on out, fair warning, we're going to get into massive spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If you haven't seen the movie, bow out now, but make sure you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so it'll be easy to find us when you do see the film, and come on back. But the rest of you guys, let's proceed into some of the biggest parts about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness that worked and kind of didn't work, and we'll sort of put it into the context of what it means for the MCU moving forward.
Try not to break the multiverse, Steven.
So my first point is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is more of a Wanda Maximoff story than it is a Doctor Strange story. If we're being fair, the movie really turns and shifts into its higher gear when Strange goes to visit Wanda and recruit her help to keep America safe from whatever the threat is that's trying to drain her powers. And surprise, surprise, the threat is Wanda. From that point on, Wanda really becomes the driving force behind this movie, with Strange mainly reacting to her actions. He's trying to stay one step ahead of her. He's trying to keep America safe. He's not really taking charge of everything that has to happen in his own sequel until the third act, and we're going to get there in a little bit. But by taking a lot of the themes that were launched in WandaVision about Wanda's grief and her desire to have a nuclear family, they almost stretched that out to become the full sort of villain plot for the Multiverse of Madness. And because of that, I thought it sort of retread some of the ground that we already kind of covered in WandaVision and covered it a little bit better. Here, obviously, Wanda wants to find a multiverse that allows her to be with her own kids. We know that you have the ability to dream walk into existing members of yourself. But the main resolution of this story and of this movie centers around Wanda and her kids. It's about America letting her see this existence and actually terrifies her children. And she begins to realize that using the Darkhold in order to get access to that type of universe is going to be ultimately, futile. It's gonna alienate her from these children that she wants to be with. And this arc that we've been following over the course of the movie is really deeply rooted to Wanda. Now, Strange helps her sort of get to that point, although America kind of helps her get to that point. And he does have some resolutions in terms of how he feels about Christine, but I think we could have jumped to that conclusion without a 2-hour and 10-minute sequel. So I think it would have been, why not make this a Wanda Maximoff movie? Instead of really making her the subplot in a Doctor Strange film. This could have been the Scarlet Witch movie, but I also thought that there were some interesting things that they could use with Wanda a little bit later on, and we'll talk about that in our next section.
The Illuminati will see you now.
Now, it's a spoiler, but we did see the Illuminati mentioned in some of the trailers, and there were some significant hints of Captain Carter and her shield, and we saw Professor X and his hand on his floating wheelchair. And I'll admit, listen, it was really geeky and cool to see the Illuminati portrayed on screen. I am in love with John Krasinski's Reed Richards. I think the ability to see Black Bolt was really, really cool. It's just that, outside of them being cool, they were a little bit wasted because you introduce them here, but you don't make them available for future stories. And I know you can say that there are going to be probably alternate versions of all of these different characters in many multiverses, and that's the trick of the multiverse. But you kind of rolled them out in, as like a subplot to a subplot in a Doctor Strange sequel, when the Illuminati should be powerful enough to have their own film, if not their own even franchise kind of thing, like on an Avengers level type of storytelling. But then you demonstrate how powerful Wanda is by the fact that she just wipes them out, one by one in viciously brutal fashion. And we're going to talk about that when we get to Sam Raimi's section. If they're supposed to be the Avengers of the multiverse, kind of where they've gathered together to make sure that things stay on track in the multiverse and nothing major happens. And in fact, that they took care of their Doctor Strange in their own world because of the way that his power had corrupted him. Then all you really showed me with the way that she eliminated the Illuminati is how strong Wanda is, and that you probably could have saved the Scarlet Witch to become a big bad in a Avengers style, massive movie team up. And that would be a little bit like a translation of the Marvel comic book series, The House of M, where Wanda essentially turns on everybody and ends up taking on the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has massive consequences. But this, instead, Multiverse of Madness seemed like almost a watered down version of the House of M, and her wiping out the Illuminati was a little bit smaller scale of things that we'd seen in the comics. So personally, I hope we see a lot of these characters back again. I really do want to see Krasinski as Reed Richards. I think Black Bolt should be brought back and the Inhumans should be introduced. And of course, the X-Men are going to be part of the future of the MCU at some point. I don't know if Patrick Stewart will continue to play Charles Xavier, as good as he is, but it was exciting to see them on screen for a couple of minutes. I just wish they did a little bit more.
That doesn't seem fair.
The third point has to do with the multiverse itself. And yes, this movie is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And while things got a little crazy, I think madness is probably a bit extreme. The montage that most people are talking about is when Doctor Strange and America teleport through multi-universes to tell us how things could look in these different worlds if they were to stop. And they don't stop for very long, but we do get a chance to sort of peek into these universes, get an idea of how they could be before they land in a universe that is oddly similar to our New York City. Like, the only real difference is they walk on red lights and stop on green. Could be a little more drastic than that. There was one universe in particular where it looked like everything was made out of paint. I wish we could have stopped there for a little bit longer. When you think about it, by the time we get to the end of this movie, I think we only really spend time in 3 possible new universes. And if you're going to call something Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I was kind of half expecting to see a lot more of that. But listen, I mean, there's plenty of weird things going on in this film. And maybe I'm being greedy by asking to see, even more of it. This could be the film where, in addition to No Way Home, even though this movie originally was supposed to come out before Spider-Man No Way Home, we at least know that the concept of the multiverse has been established. And there are other universes out there that our characters can cross over into. This was suggested in Loki. This was furthered in Spider-Man No Way Home and has been expanded on a grander scale in this new Doctor Strange film. So I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm sure that Kevin Feige knows exactly what he's doing, and it's going to take us to those different universes soon enough. But I wanted a little bit more of it in Doctor Strange.
The nightmare begins.
It might sound like I didn't like this movie, and that's not the case. I did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It just didn't reach the top tier Marvel for me, and the best parts about it were really the Sam Raimi parts. Sam Raimi, in addition to directing the original 3 Spider-Men that Tobey Maguire was part of, has a history in horror. So when Scott Derrickson walked away from the first Doctor Strange, it made sense why you'd plug in Sam Raimi to make Marvel's first attempt at a horror film. Now, this wasn't a true traditional horror, but it had those grisly sort of creature and body horror elements that Sam Raimi has made really popular in films like The Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, of course, Drag Me to Hell. Raimi specializes in this, and even when he, dabbled with horror in the Spider-Man franchise, we got to see Dr. Octopus coming to life inside the operating room with his tentacles going wild and picking up chainsaws and going after doctors and just having a grand old time. So the eye gouge, for the main creature in the New York battle was vintage Raimi. The deaths of the Illuminati were vintage Raimi. Like Black Bolt's mouth getting sealed and then him screaming loud enough for his skull to implode. Perfect. Like, you just wouldn't get that in another MCU film that Sam Raimi hasn't directed. Peggy's death was brutal. Reed Richards' death was great. And then the whole third act, with Doctor Strange being able to dreamwalk into his corpse from the beginning of the film, and then summoning evil spirits to basically form a cape of sinister spirits, was total perfect Raimi, and shows what happens when Marvel hands the reins over to a director with a really strong vision and a strong voice and lets them do their thing. There's definitely some Marvel formula at play here, and Raimi had to rein it back in a couple of different times. But because of that, I think Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is as close to like Thor Ragnarok or even the first Guardians, where the voice of the filmmaker really shines through. And I'm glad Raimi got a chance to take a stab at this, because when he really went full Raimi, particularly in that third act, and the way that he eliminated the Illuminati, that's when I was having the most fun with this film.
Everything you've ever known led you to this moment.
If I'm giving a star rating to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I'm going 3.5 stars out of 5. I was close to 4, because when I came out of it, I was on a high, and I thought all the Raimi stuff worked really well. My argument was that the stuff that worked really well, and the stuff that missed really missed. And the more I thought about it, and the more I realized that it was, as a Doctor Strange sequel, not the most satisfying, but a great Wanda story, I came down to about 3.5 out of 5. So again, not top tier Marvel for me, but much better than, some of the ones that would be at the bottom of the barrel for this. I'm glad to see people are responding to it. The box office has been fantastic. Most people seem to like it, but it's a little bit cool when a Marvel movie is divisive and people find things to debate over it, because that means we'll be picking it apart for months to come as we wait for the next Marvel film. The good news is we don't have to wait very long, because Thor: Love and Thunder is coming to theaters in July, and then we have the next Black Panther film, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which is going to be landing in November. So plenty more Marvel to come, which is why you're going to want to hit subscribe and turn on your notifications, because we're going to be reviewing those films and all the Marvel Disney Plus television series here, as well as Star Wars and DC. Basically, all your entertainment needs get met here, so make sure you keep it right here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page.